Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a truly fascinating, deeply esoteric worldview. We're actually diving into the very first lecture given by the philosopher and scientist Rudolf Steiner way back in 1923. Specifically, we're going to focus on his extraordinary theories regarding bees. Now, if you think you know how a beehive works, you might want to prepare to have your perspective entirely shifted. You see, Steiner didn't just look at bees as little honey producers, he saw them as cosmic barometers. In this first lecture, it lays the absolute foundation for his complex, spiritual, scientific worldview.
Now, to really grasp the material we're covering today, we've got to look at it through Steiner's unique 1923 lens. In his spiritual scientific perspective, nature is never random. Every single shape, every timeline, every behavior, it's all deeply connected to cosmic forces. Steiner proposes that the bee is this incredible collector of nature's most refined cosmic substances. By looking really closely at the hive, he argues we are actually looking at a mirror of the universe itself. And as you'll see a bit later, it's also a mirror of our own human biology.
Okay, let's dive into this. Our roadmap for today takes us through 6 key areas. First, the enigma of the hive, followed by children of the sun and the secret of the swarm. Then we turn inward to the hive in our heads, explore the healing power of honey, and finally, look at the future of beekeeping.
Part 1. The Enigma of the Hive. Cosmic Geometry. Let's start with the physical reality of the hive itself. The bees don't just find their home, They literally construct their entire world from within their own bodies, transforming nectar and pollen into wax. But the shape they choose to build with, that's where Steiner's analysis really takes off.
Most of us just assume bees build those perfect hexagonal cells simply because, well, it's the most mathematically efficient way to save space, right? While Steiner acknowledges that, he argues there's a much deeper, cosmic reason at play. He suggests that a standard spherical cell would isolate a larva, but a 6-sided hexagonal shell actively imparts specific cosmic energies and formative forces right into the developing bee. The larva literally absorbs the energy of this geometry. But notice the queen cell. It's round and pouch-like. She is intentionally isolated from these hexagonal earth energies, which Steiner says is absolutely critical to her royal development.
Which brings us to part 2, Children of the Sun, a cosmic timetable. Steiner believed that the amount of time a bee spends maturing before it hatches is intimately connected to cosmic rhythms, specifically the movements of the sun and the earth. Let's break down this cosmic timetable. Steiner lays out this really fascinating hierarchy based entirely on time. The queen matures the fastest, in just 16 days. Steiner argues this means she never fully completes the solar cycle. She's held back, eternally a sun child, and that's exactly what gives her the power to lay eggs. The worker matures in exactly 21 days, and the drone, the male bee, takes the longest, 23 to 24 days. Because the drone's development extends past the solar cycle, Steiner states it has essentially fallen under the influence of the Earth, severing its pure connection to the sun, but gaining the earthly power of fertilization.
So why is the worker bee's 21-day cycle so significant? Well, in Steiner's framework, 21 days is absolutely not a random number. It's the approximate time it takes for the sun to revolve once completely on its own axis. Because the worker bee takes exactly 21 days to mature, it perfectly syncs up with this solar cycle. It absorbs every single influence the sun has to offer, making the worker bee the ultimate manifestation of solar energy in the physical world.
And because of this deep solar connection, reproduction for bees simply cannot happen in the dark. Bees don't have a hidden nuptial bed tucked away in the hive. Instead, they engage in a very public nuptial flight. To be fertilized, the queen has to fly as high as possible into the sky, literally striving toward the sun's realm, where she belongs. The drones, utilizing their earthly energy, must push themselves to their absolute physical limits just to follow her into the heights of the sunlit air.
Moving right along to part 3, the secret of the swarm, the twilight world. Now we transition to one of the most common, everyday events in beekeeping, but explained through Steiner's highly mystical logic.
If you've ever seen a swarm of bees leaving a hive en masse, you know it just looks like total chaos. But why does it actually happen? What triggers half a colony to suddenly up and abandon its home?
So here is the crucial point. It's all about how bees perceive the world. Steiner explains that worker bees actually live in a continuous state of twilight, relying heavily on taste and smell rather than sight. And this internal twilight, it's maintained by their own bee poison. The poison acts as a sort of barrier against overwhelming external influences. But when a new queen is born, she brings this intense new burst of sun energy right into the hive.
This raw solar energy neutralizes the worker's poison. Suddenly, their tiny eyes are forced to see. Steiner describes them as becoming instantly clairvoyant. They are utterly terrified and blinded by this new queen's light. So the old colony flees the hive in an absolute panic, just trying to escape the blinding glare.
And this brilliantly illustrates our next section, Part 4, The Hive in Our Heads, an Anatomical Mirror. Having established how the hive operates out there in nature, Steiner then makes what is probably his most striking and unexpected analogy.
Steiner actually maps the entire society of the beehive directly onto the anatomy of the human head. From his perspective, the hive functions exactly like a human brain, just externalized in nature. The drones, which are used up and killed off by the hive, represent our nerve cells, which are constantly dying and fraying as we age. The worker bees represent our blood cells, always circulating and building the body. And the queen bee represents the vital protein cells right at the center of our development.
He actually takes this analogy even deeper into our physical structure. Think about it. Just as worker bees collect nectar to manufacture wax and build those hexagonal combs, our blood cells carry vital nutrients, what Steiner figuratively calls our own honey, throughout our bodies. This blood does the work of the bees, actively constructing the hexagonal, wax-like cellular structures deep within our own bones. According to Steiner, we literally have the geometry of the beehive built right into our skeletal frame.
Which leads us perfectly into Part 5, the healing power of honey, solidifying the human form. Understanding this incredible symbiotic link between the hive and human biology grounds these abstract theories into very practical, physical takeaways, especially when it comes to our diet.
Because human blood acts like a worker bee building our bodies, Steiner highly prescribed the consumption of honey. He believed eating honey returns a vital soul effort to our internal organs, acting much like milk does for a growing infant. Specifically, honey imparts the cosmic power of form and solidity to the human body. He strongly recommended it for older folks to help maintain their bodily structure, though he did warn against overdoing it, saying eating too much could make the body overly brittle. He also theorized that feeding proper doses of honey to children could actually counteract softening diseases like rickets, because the honey acts as an architectural wax, giving strength and literal shape to human cells.
Finally, we arrive at Part 6, the future of beekeeping, a prophetic warning. You see, despite his immense reverence for the hive, Steiner was deeply concerned about the increasing mechanization of nature that he was witnessing in the 1920s.
Speaking directly to a professional beekeeper in the audience, a man named Mr. Mueller, Steiner delivered this incredibly striking quote. He acknowledged that the artificial breeding of queens might yield short-term profits and make things more efficient right now, but he warned that mechanizing this sacred cosmic process would slowly, inevitably drain the hive of its organic wisdom. He firmly believed that if humanity relied strictly on artificially produced bees, the entire system would collapse within a century.
Keep in mind, Steiner gave this lecture exactly 100 years ago. Today, as we face these massive, unexplained die-offs of bee populations all over the world, his words echo with a pretty eerie resonance, don't they? It leaves us with a vital question to ponder. How are our modern mechanized agricultural practices disrupting the ancient natural wisdom of the hive? By treating bees as mere machines for our own convenience, what cosmic connections have we severed? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating perspective with me today.